him being an Asian American who run for like president has been quite a topic in our community. But
for sure.
he
I feel
has
like our community is the Asian American community here. We're pretty like there's people who really support Andrew Yang within our community, and then there's people who like really don't like him, and it's understandable.
and it's actually the first time, I think, one of the first major time nationwide he's talking about like racial background of his as a politician in this article, right?
He has mentioned like race in the past, like on the debate stage, but this is like, but in terms of like really calling it out in terms of like where we are now because of the coronavirus. So he wrote this piece because
what's the title of this piece?
So the name of the piece, let me pull it up. There's a website called Next Shark, and they made a comment about that. So Andrew Yang draws backlash from the Asian Americans after Washington Post op-ed piece. So he wrote this article that talks about like his experience, like when he was in the grocery store, and then his whole thing was like how he says that like Asians need to be more involved.
We'll put the link of the Washington Post article from Andrew Yang.
Yeah, for sure. We'll post a link down below. He said that like we need to be more American. He said we need to demonstrate our patriotism and our Americanism in a time like now. And so he actually got a lot of backlash on Twitter for that, and it was really interesting because when that article came out, there's been more than one person who's reached out to me because they knew that I liked Andrew Yang, and they asked me, "Hey, so what do you think about this article? What do you think about his thoughts? Like he's pandering to them, you know?" I just found it really interesting because like we're in such a fragile point in our lives because of the coronavirus. There's been a lot more hate crimes against Asians and Asian Americans all over the world, like not just in America, but in the UK, Australia. We've had hundreds of cases to a point where the FBI raised concerns about how there's this increased xenophobia and these hate crimes. So Andrew Yang wrote this article to talk about that and says like, like what we're in a very critical time, and what we could do is to demonstrate our loyalty to the country. And that was what got a lot of backlash amongst the Asian American community because rightfully so, because we've done a lot in this for the country. We struggled a lot, and I think that was the problem, is that like his wording was pretty off. But what I took from the article was that I still felt like it came off, and his phrasing was kind of too blanketed of a statement. But ultimately it's about how we could be involved, how us as Asians and Asian Americans could be involved during this time to really go out there to help out, to participate, to help out in the communities that we need to donate, to volunteer, to support. Like, honestly, that is what his message was about. But I understand why there was like a lot of backlash because of it too. It also seemed like from a lot of Asian Americans' perspective, he's not somebody who fully understands the Asian American experience. But in his defense, he never says that he represents Asian Americans. Like,
okay. Yeah. Well, I didn't really thought of that part. But yeah, I totally agree with you on that part, that like maybe the wording is a little off about how because I really like the title. I think the articles address some of, like, he really addressed the problem that the community has encountered, especially under COVID-19 outbreaks. And and he calls for everybody to stand up, not just under this circumstances, but also like in daily life, like
exactly. And I've always like felt that, like, since like supporting Andrew Yang, like that's what I felt too. And obviously I have to look at it from a more objective perspective, because there is a little bit of bias on my end because I've met him before, I've worked for his campaign. Of course I'm gonna like listen to him and be like, yeah, of course it's right, but I also have to look at it from what our community has been through, too, and I know for a fact that like we've been through a lot, and which is why he doesn't represent like Asian Americans like as a whole. And you never can. Like, I don't even like the word representation,
Yeah, Asian America is a very big topic. It also includes, like, sometimes I wouldn't say I represent Asian American because specifically East Asian, Middle Asian, Asia is like different culture, and South Asia is totally different.
And that's just one aspect of it. Like, there's so many other aspects, including like, what does it mean to grow up as like as a child of Vietnamese refugees? Or what does it mean to grow up as a 4th generation Chinese American? Or what does it mean to be an international student? You know, like recently coming to America, like we have the Asian diaspora in this country is so unique and so diverse. Like we range from really, really rich, like affluent people to poorer than poor, like bottom of like poverty Asians as well. So there is no full like one way to represent Asians and Asian Americans. But that is why I felt like that article was great, because it showed great in the sense of like it showed light on how divided we are and why, more importantly, we do need to come together in this specific time. Like we are currently looking at arguably the darkest time in American history.
Yeah.
We have this opportunity to turn it into a positive one with what we could bring to the table. We have this opportunity right now to change what people think about Asians and Asian Americans. This is the time we can do it right now.
I totally
in the midst, you know.
Yeah, totally. Because there are actually a lot of news, especially from Next Shark. It's a really good media company project that they're doing.
I love Next Shark.
They did a lot of articles and reports on specifically Asian community influencers who donate for to government and hospitals, like Panda Express owners who donated. There are also
Brooklyn Nets owners. They did it too.
Chinese business owners donated ventilators to New
Jack
York.
Ma, Alibaba.
Yeah, a lot of them, and I think that it's a great example how we came together, and you know, like of course we need to remember the history of like Asian American has been the minority and suffered, and that shouldn't be neglected, ignored. And I think part of people who don't like Andrew Yang's article is that they think he ignored part of the Asian American minority history, like the history of our suffering, and want us to be more American, which, you know.
That's the thing is like, what does it mean to be American in the 21st century? Like,
but I think his article I agree with you, shed a great light on the topic of Asian American, like what it means to be Asian American, what are we experiencing, and what could we do right now?
For sure. And this brings up an even bigger thing, because like it's almost like a blast from the past, where it's like, oh wow, like we're experiencing this spike of like xenophobia and hate crimes, like I guess arguably more than like when during World War II with the Japanese internment camps. Like there's a lot of hate crimes back then too, as well as like with the Vietnam War. Like, so we're seeing this resurgence of that again, and that's why a lot of people are very anxious and they're very scared, and understandably so. I do want to point out that in the midst of all of this hate crimes, like we as a community, we got to stay strong. Like whenever something like this happens, if we see something, we have to acknowledge it. We have to confront it, like head on.
I totally agree. Yeah. Especially under this time where there's a lot of hate crimes happen.
Has there been any has anything happened to you, by the way?
Yeah, actually it was very, I wouldn't say interesting, but definitely out of blue that I think it was around February, like one of my friends kind of used racist words and verbally abused to me, and I didn't expect it, and it kind of hurt me like out of nowhere, and it hurt really deep. And I realized that, you know, under this time, not only the authority need to acknowledge that a lot of not just Asian American, there are others, but specifically in Asian American community, we're facing all those race of frequencies of hate crime and racism incidents happen. And not only the authority need to acknowledge it and support our community, but also like we need to stand together. We, as all people, need to stand together and speak up and protect all those who are for the people who are, you know, more likely to get attacked and verbal abuse in this situation.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry you had to go through that. All I can say is I'm sorry about that.
Well, it happened, and actually we're gonna put some links of like websites of where you can find help, and articles from New York Times and other websites that talk about what to do.
Well, we have there is a website that is specifically to keep track of what's been happening in our community in terms of like the rising hate crime. So if you guys are watching this and there has been something that has affected you personally, you can check it out on that website. You can write that story in, because one of the best things we could do is to document it and to voice it, to speak up, to speak out about this. And also, I think this is a great reminder for us to be involved in other communities as well. Like for a long, like, yes, we have been involved in the civil rights movement and everything. Yes, we have made a certain mark in those aspects, but as a community as a whole, we don't participate as much in terms of voting, in terms of Black Lives Matter, in terms of the Me Too movement. Like, there's so much more that we could do. It's like, I'm not trying to say that we don't do anything, but there's more that we could do, especially in time like now. So yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, we should be engaged and active, and definitely speak up to the situation. Don't feel shame. Don't feel, ignored. Like, people will listen, and if you talk about it, people will listen. And especially at this time, call your friends and your family to be more
Yes. Yeah.
of situations of hate crime, and also with the current events, what's going on, and provide help, or at least stay home. It's also
it's just stay home, just don't go outside. Like that, honestly, that's the best solution.
each other.
I also like what you said in terms of like reaching out to friends and family, because regardless whether or not you have experienced some form of racism, or even if you're not Asian, like, the coronavirus doesn't discriminate against race, ethnicity, religion, background. And so the coronavirus has no borders. And the other thing that also doesn't have any borders is love. Like, love has no borders. Like, wherever, as corny and cliche as it sounds, like, so everybody is suffering. Everybody's going through these problems. So mental health is such a big important thing. So that is why, like, as you mentioned, like, reaching out to our friends, our family members, to check in on everybody, making sure that everybody's okay.